So, if you listen to my last podcast, I talked about some of the projects that I've been working on lately. Just in my readings, some of the new information that I'm stumbling on. I mentioned three topics that I wanted to talk about. Of course, one of them was global black disposability and why it just surprises me how all dark skinned people and black people globally, the global African diaspora, really struggle with the same thing, really struggle to fit into every other society. Africa has been pillaged for far too long for really Africa to be a current viable option for people who are trying to get advancement. And so they, majority of the time, they're stuck with going out to Europe and the far west, just in search of better possibilities. And I just find it interesting that this is the one thing everyone agrees on, that something has got to give. For the first time, it's a shame that it has taken the world this long to even begin to have a consciousness conversation that digs into the past, that makes promises that the mistakes that have happened, that have led us here today, where Black lives simply just don't matter right now because of what has happened in the past. And if no one is talking about it, if no one is really addressing it, then we run the risk of just living in a utopic world that is utopic for only the ones with the power and the privilege, and just hellish for everyone else, and especially worse for people at the bottom of the totem pole historically. And so that's one thing that I want to talk about. I really see similarities between my academic journey where I'm studying about Africa and Africa's history, just really trying to understand what has happened in the past and how has that brought us to here as an African. And then trying to understand some of the nuances with race in America and actually begin to see them. You know, it's just so interesting where the intersection is. And I am going to bring it to your notice. That's my job, to get all that information, to study all of that, to really understand it on a very fundamental level, synthesize it, and then bring it to you so your consciousness can be raised, so you can have a better understanding of how you really, really play in the world, especially if you're a person of African descent. This is the first time I'm going live, so I'm not really, letting people know, some of the people in my circles, to come check me out, and that's just because I want some of this content to just be in the ether first before anyone even really gets to consume them, because it's not that I don't want to communicate on a more larger scale, but I still want to have that feeling of a one-on-one communication that I would have in a conversation that I'd be having off record, off the camera. I talk about these things every day with everyone that I meet, with all the people in my inner circle. We discuss the nuances of police brutality, something that I've had an issue with in Nigeria way before I even came out here. Police brutality, obviously, is something that is very palpable in America, very, 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 very clear, evidently. And I have issues. I've had some issues with authority before, and a lot of them were back at home. The police brutality in Nigeria is very broken as well, very similar to here. The criminal justice system is very broken as well, similar to here. You think about how you may not know someone who's stuck in the criminal justice system as maybe an elite Nigerian, but they're there. And just in the same way where the people at the lowest privilege level are suffering police brutality and just disproportional prison numbers in America, it's that's the same way it's happening in Nigeria, or just there poverty. Poverty is the mark. Poverty is the mark, and that's why, like, getting out of poverty is a survival thing. And so that's a similarity between here, because when you then dig into that, then you once you peel off the layers of poverty, then you get very not that long you get into crime. So it's not it's the effect of the cause, not the cause. So that's why I just really want to start having some of these conversations at some as someone who stands in the divide, in the middle, to actually even be able to maybe educate some Nigerians about why they need to join the struggle. They need to understand that this fight is their fight. It's all of our fight. It's a fight. It's all of our fight, and there is no way one person can do it alone. Every link in the chain to change is important. Every single link. So I just want everyone to really understand that no matter where any Black person is globally, or any African person is globally, anti-Blackness is affecting everyone. Black disposability is affecting everyone. And if you have a responsibility, if you believe that you're going to procreate and you will not be the last of your lineage, then you kind of have to fight for Black freedom. It's essential, because if I'm having these thoughts and if I'm having these questions, and if they sometimes really do keep me up at night, then I imagine that if I go ahead to procreate and I bring a daughter into this world, I bring a girl here, and she's going to have questions. I mean, she may have those questions way earlier than I even began having them, just because of the difference in the background of a boy growing up in rural Ife and maybe a girl growing up in 21st century Chicago. So it's really a fight for everyone, for every Black skinned people. And I just really can't wait for a time where the movement is speaking with a unified voice. And to me, in my opinion, that voice should be Pan Africanism. It really should just be about what is going to happen. It's going to be about what's the plan. And so I just really think that we're like right now all working in the background, in behind the scenes, just so that at the point where the people need a voice and where they need some leadership, some guidance, then the educators, and the technocrats and the intellectuals, they'll be the one now to, I mean, I can't wait for philosophy to be cool again. Education is no longer cool. It's just like a catchphrase now. It's like, oh, just get education. It's really not the deep education. And so I live for that world. I live for the consciousness revolution. And so it's just interesting that I never thought I'd be able to relate Africa and Nigerian to America in the way that I currently am. And I'm going to tell you why. I'll tell you why. Today was my dad's birthday. You know, my dad is 57, and my siblings and I, we all gathered together on a Zoom meeting, and we just cheered and just like had fun, and really, really spent the day with my dad. What we would do if we were in the same place, if we were in the same city, but we all live all over the world. And so that was the closest we could have to fellowship, to spending time with family. I miss them so much. I just miss my family a lot. And it just really gets me thinking. Some of the conversations we had was really about why their generation, which is just the people who really grew up in the 70s and the 80s, the 70s, who grew up in the 70s, 60s, late 60s and 70s. Why is it that it seems to me that all of the revolutionary attempts that ever started at that time was almost shut down violently? And I don't know if I'm reading it accurately. I don't want to be a boomer hater, but it really does feel that the radicalism has just been increasing, not reducing. Because right now, as a 29-year-old guy, I look down at the kids who are 22, 23, and I'm just seeing them as such an important part of this movement, the movement to liberation. is just really dependent on youth. And every single day that you don't know that you're not free and so are fighting for freedom, you let go of growth. It's progress. We're losing progress. And so I asked them, because I would have imagined, I would have expected them to hand over the baton to us. But it really feels like we're having to pick up the baton ourselves. And it just makes me wonder what part of history has been wiped out, so that I don't know that there was a resistance, so that I don't know that there was like a revolution in the past, and that there were people who resisted, who said no, who refused, even despite all of the oppression, that they would not believe in an inferior dark-skinned race. I had to get off my dad's case because it's his birthday and I can't, that is such a heavy conversation to have. But I did manage to ask him one question: voting. Why didn't you vote? Why weren't you voting? It was almost like religion just almost disconnected itself from state, and also remained a really big part of state, because it's the most ironical thing ever. You would imagine that the church that benefits a lot from the largesse of such close relationship with government would at least fight for some liberation for people, for some equality. And just from my own history, I haven't read a lot, but like from just what I know, the church has never been a champion for social change. And I really got to ask my dad about that today. And he really just explains to me that back in the 70s, when the military was really in charge, ruling in Nigeria, he never felt like they could really resist. There was no movement, and the government were able to, it was a military regime, that was his point. And I was really trying to make the point that it is sort of still a military regime. It does feel that way. We're censored heavily. The technology really is used against us, not for us. We're spied upon consent. These things happen all the time. And these things are the equivalent of 21st century dictatorship, of 21st century freedom of speech infringement. So I just really can't see what makes it easy for us to fight for freedom that made it difficult for our parents to. And so I want to be able to tell the younger ones, my brother has a son, my sister has a daughter, and I'm going to sit with them, and I'm going to talk with them, and they'll ask me, like, Uncle Faith, what's up with this? I want to have concrete answers for them, not shadow. We will ask questions when we were much younger, but the answers were always so, they just really wanted to, we were like flies. They just wanted to get us off their backs. It's like, don't, just don't ask those deep stuff. We don't talk about that deep stuff. And now, as a young man growing up, living in the world, not really in the bubble of the church, or not in the bubble of a closed society, but really subject to the world, those questions keep me up at night. And I just wonder how many of the young people are having these questions. Like, okay, so what's up with some of the history that we've had with mediocrity, where we've outsourced happiness to some future time, like heaven? And what's up with that, Uncle Faith? What's up with that? Why is it that we can't have nice things now, and we have to wait for heaven to have good roads, and to have electricity, maybe, and to have potable water? Why do we have to wait for then, Dad? Like, Uncle Faith, like, what's up with that? So I want to have solid answers. I want to be able to bring them from history. It's a heavy conversation. If history is fun, it's fake. I'm just going to say that one more time. If history is fun, then it's fake. The only people history could be fun for is Europeans. It's Europeans. There is no fun thing about the most recent African history. It's really a story of pillaging, just from where I'm sitting, not from what I was taught in government in a carefully curated syllabus that sought to wipe out the true story. That's not what I was taught. But now I do choose what I read. I choose what I study. I choose what I put on my Kindle, and I see the real secret, and I see the real truth, and I see the real history, not the revisionist history. And it's not fun. I'm working on just how I'm going to really package my coaching materials and my coaching branding and packaging. It's just so interesting me thinking of myself in light of a businessman, a creative, an entrepreneur. I've never really felt like I had the skills for that. I've always thought of myself more as just a reader, a writer, and now I have to play all of the parts of the play of my life, and that's kind of been proving a little difficult for me. But it really shows me one thing, that there are young people who feel like this. There are young people who feel this way, who know what they want to do. I've always known that I wanted to be a life coach, going up on 10 years now. I knew it. I knew that what I wanted to do was, they told me, they try to bully it out of me. Like, oh, Faith, you like to talk, lawyer, you're a lawyer and you just like to talk. I'm like, well, actually, I do like to talk, but like, not because I'm a lawyer, and not just because I like to hear the sound of my voice. It's because I get into so much information that it itches me to spread. And just the idea, just the fact that someone may not know this just gets me going. I'm like, someone may not know this, I'm gonna tell them. So that's the way that I see my coaching and what I want to do, and the fear that I have manifesting. And I'm telling you that I know that there are other young people who can relate to this. And so if you're a young person and you're hearing my voice right now, this is just simply me telling you that you go, you go, yeah, you go, you're doing this, you're doing it. 2018 was a very depressing year for me. That might be the first year I actually ever understood depression. And I'm telling you one thing: if you have not been depressed, you don't understand depression. Just don't argue with someone who says they're depressed and tell them, maybe it's something else. If they say they're depressed, they probably were depressed. You don't need to dig into whether they abused it. You don't need to dig into how clinical it is. But someone who is struggling to explain to you that they couldn't appreciate sunshine for a while, believe them. And so if you're that young creative out there thinking of starting a clothing line, thinking of going to law school, I mean, it's very expensive, spoiler alert. But if you're a young person thinking of starting your own business, thinking of getting a job, you have an interview coming up, you're drafting cover letters, you're not getting responses, you're working on your resume, you just finished your NYSC, whatever it is you're doing, coming on my channel, coming on my YouTube page, or listening to my podcast, it's gonna be refreshing for you. It's gonna be an energy boost. I will be talking about some heavy topics sometimes. I will be talking about some consciousness stuff sometimes. I'll be talking about spirituality a lot. And I'll be talking about policy sometimes. And I'll be talking about leadership sometimes. And I'll be talking about history a lot. Some of that will be heavy. But one thing you can know is that you can leave feeling fresh. You can leave feeling light, because I feel light when I am allowed to just go on my stream of consciousness, when I'm allowed to just spread my education and what I'm learning, and just what I tell you might just be what I read a little earlier in the day. So it's not like I'm sitting down on a lot of information and I just know a lot. No, not really. I probably just read it as well, but it blows my mind, and so I want to tell you, I want to share it with you. So yeah, anyone who's ever met me knows that I have the ability to really get people in to talking about the topics that they are interested in, and other than maybe sports. And I don't know too much about tech as well, but I am very open to talking about just topics. Greatness is one of my favorite topics. I love talking about greatness, just people who've been great, how they've gotten there, the challenges that they've had to overcome, the stress that they've had to deal with, the flaws that they've had to accept it, and just their general overview about life. I love talking about greatness. I recommend a book to anyone listening right now. And this is one of my favorite sayings. I haven't really read the whole of the book, but I know a lot about the author and I've read a lot of his other works. It really just tells you about how like the stages to greatness, the steps to freedom, and just it's called The Hero's Journey. Is Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell really to me is an incredible writer because I can't box him in. It really just explains why people believe in the things that they believe in. He really doesn't attack anyone or throw any jabs at any faith or any belief or any movement. It just seeks to understand, and I love following that process. And so the hero's journey talks about like all of just the stages of journeying through life, and every single one of us is on those trips. It's a solo trip, unfortunately. Even if you have a partner, even if you have kids, it's still a solo trip. You're still going at it alone. So it's gonna really make you really connect to some of the things that maybe the fears that you feel just by sharing, just by telling you that look, there are people who have gone through this process and who came out on the other side. And even though I'm very wary of exceptionalism and of making it seem like only just a few people who have been successful in history, but but we can learn something from the ones that are documented. A lot of them are not documented. And so if you believe that you will be great, document your process. That's another saying right there. If you believe you will be great, document your process. You really want to keep it on record that I'm about that life. Okay. I am not settling. And it really wouldn't matter what happens. It won't matter what happens. Eventually, no one's going to care if you wrote that you were going to be great, but you ended up being, well, not the greatest. No one's going to care. But if you wrote that you want to be great and you end up being great, that's the best thing ever. And sometimes that even happens. Well, hopefully that happens in your lifetime where there is an understanding that you're one of the greatest thinkers of your time. Like I said, a lot of my channel would just be stream of consciousness. It would be heavy sometimes, it would be very light at other times. And I have had a YouTube channel for a while, but I just don't really know the editing process or how to really put some put some like sparkle on it. So just excuse the rawness of this, just the fact that it's not like polished. I really hope that you appreciate, maybe you pick out one or two things from all I'm saying. So obviously, I would like to have question and answer sessions just from young people. Like if you're in uni and you're in like your fourth year, you're in your third year, and you're struggling and you're really trying to figure out what you want to do, and you don't know how the next semester is going to look like, and you're just really dealing with stress overall. And sometimes you don't even know what your stressors are. And maybe you need a coach to walk with you through your stressors. I'm not a licensed therapist or even a licensed counselor, but one thing that I know for sure is I know how the young person's mind works. That's for sure. I can do brain surgery for you just with my words. I can do brain surgery for you just with my words. So if you're ever going through any of those stress, you can be sure that just coming on my page, coming on my profile, reaching out to me, booking me. I do private coaching sessions. I do group coaching sessions. I do question and answer sessions. You can book me. You can reach out to me. You can pay me for my service. I have a lot of free services. I have a lot of free options. You can use any of those. And you can also get one of those ones that I have put a dollar sign behind. So that would also mean that you value my time and that you really value your life. And so if you ever feel like that kind of way, just really uncertain, like hit me up. Let's talk about it. This is what I live and breathe. I want you to be free. I want you to not be afraid. Or if you're afraid, I want you to power through it. I want you to go through it. I won't rush you. I still believe in long term mentality. I still believe in taking things slow, taking things gradually, not rushing. But you don't want to atrophy. You don't want to just get stuck on one point for too long. And you can plan and plot over a long time. But at some point, you just want to manifest. You just want to be. You want to be calm. And it's going to be a part of your journey, the point in which you found out that you get to choose when you've bloomed. So send your messages, send your questions to me. I would go at them. I would just go at them. I'll read them out and I'll go at them. I would probably be trying to figure it out as well as I'm answering you. So I don't have any divine answer to anything, but I do have a very unique perspective on life that I have fine-tuned over many years, that I've found out is not just a phase or is not just a feeling. It's a knowing. It's I believe anything that I say. I say because I believe it. And so, if you want to really tap into that, if you are looking to kind of charge yourself up a little bit, you can reach out to me. If you're expecting a job interview, you want to talk to me. If you are about to go to a job interview, you want to talk to me. If you're going for a presentation at a company, you're trying to get a business deal, you're trying to get a contract, trying to move your product, and you're going to have to convince your client that you're the best out there and that they can't get better than you. You want to talk to me a day before that. You really really want to have a consultation with me, just so that you can have someone to tell your fears, who thinks they're unfounded, who thinks that you got this, who doesn't think there's any reason for you to be afraid. That's my job. That's my job. I'm working on an episode right now with an organizational leadership expert. And I think it'll be interesting because some of the questions that I find myself having, wanting to ask, I'm just like, wow, I really want to get people talking about the real things, no matter how discomforting they may be to talk about, no matter how uncomfortable they might make us seem. We have to push through that discomfort. And I think that's what has scared me for many years in launching my podcast, my own sound, my own voice out there into the public, is because I feel insecure about my opinions. I've always felt like I was going to be vilified, I was going to be lynched, maybe definitely not literally, but in a metaphorical sense, about how sometimes radical leaning my ideologies might be. And that's because I have come from a default setting that I've questioned every single thing that I've ever believed in. And then I'm starting to rebuild a new belief system. And under that belief system, everything is to be tested before it is trusted. And so it's not really a thing of me wanting to come up very strong all the time or wildly opinionated. It's really just in context of what I have been taught, what I have learned, and what I've found to be true and not. So I just really appreciate anyone who has really stayed this long listening to this, and who really enjoyed some of the things that I talked about or has learned something. I'm still trying to figure out how the YouTube streaming works. If you're listening right now on my podcast and this is audio for you, you can check out my YouTube channel. It's my name, just YouTube, Faith Olofintuyi. And out here, I just, I'm just talking. You can get to see me. The quality is really bad, but you can at least get to see me as I'm walking through my projects. You can see my behind the scenes, and I think you might like that. So, but I'm trying to figure out how to manage the app. Trying to figure out things on my computer gives me anxiety. I just want to mention that. I don't think this whole thing recorded at all. That's Anyway, thank you guys so much. This is for the YouTube channel. I really appreciate anyone who stayed by. No one stayed by, but I know someone would listen later. I really appreciate you.